Welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. I'm your host, Debra Chantry-Taylor. I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs and their leadership teams get what they want out of business and life. On the show, I invite successful business owners and expert speakers to share their successes. They are open and honest about the highs and lows of business and also life as a business owner. We want to share those learnings with you to inspire you, but also to help you avoid some of the common mistakes. My hope is that you take something from each of these short episodes that you can put into action to help you get what you want, not only out of your business, but also your life. Good morning and welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. My name is Debra Chantry-Taylor and I'm the host for this podcast series. I spend my life as a professional EOS implementer, which is all about helping people create a better business. They can actually have a better life. And it's part of my reason for being is to actually enable that. I think life is too short to not be doing what you love. Today, I am going to be talking to you about the 10 disciplines for managing and maximizing your energy as an entrepreneur. And as you know, if you've been listening for the last couple of weeks, it's a pre-recorded podcast because I'm actually at this current point in time roaming around the South Island in a camper van with my husband and my 2 dogs, hopefully seeing some amazing scenery, drinking some nice wine, eating some nice food, meeting some great people. So I've recorded a whole series of these podcasts that you'll actually better hear, but don't worry, this is not going to continue this way. It's only for a short period of time. I've got a couple of amazing guests lined up for when I get back, and I just snuck one in this morning as well. So you'll actually have somebody, probably the next episode, who's actually be talking about their journey through the entrepreneurial life. And then we'll come back for a couple more episodes from me. And then finally, when I get back, we'll have a whole bunch of new people to come on board for the podcast. But in the meantime, I didn't want you to miss out on having some useful tips and tools you can use in your business. And so today I am talking about these 10 disciplines, which actually come from a man who I have huge respect for, and that man is Gino Wickman. So Gino developed the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, and that is a system for managing energy in your business, which gets everyone focused in the same direction. And this particular podcast is about how do we as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, actually manage and maximize our energy as an entrepreneur to ensure we can actually manage that energy in the business. I currently do about 7 out of 10 of them. So I'm going to share the ones I do really well and maybe the ones I don't do so well and give you some examples of what we actually do. So that his whole book, The EOS Life, is written about how to live the ideal entrepreneurial life. And this 10 disciplines are actually part of that book. And when we talk about the ideal entrepreneurial life here at EOS, we talk about doing what you love with people you love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately with time to pursue other passions. I'm going to talk about these 10 disciplines and what we can do as entrepreneurs to help us get towards even that EOS life. The first question we have to ask is, why are entrepreneurs different? And I guess it's because, we already know about leadership or management. So we're not going to tell you how to lead or manage. You're already doing that. We don't have to figure out how to motivate you because you're already motivated. Entrepreneurs take huge risks. They're always putting themselves out there. They have huge energy. They're very driven. They're very passionate. And we're not going to address exercising or eating right because we're kind of assuming that you're actually looking after yourself as an entrepreneur. The 10 disciplines I'm going to share with you are more about how you can actually put in place some really simple practices that can actually help you in terms of managing and maximizing your energy. So number one, and the first thing Gino talks about is 10-year thinking. And what he says is that, thinking in 10-year timeframes grants long-term perspective, which is essential to any successful entrepreneur. If you can actually think long-term, you can start to slow time down, which improves your decision-making and your patience. And so it allows you to be prepared for the great, the good, and the bad years in the business cycle and grants you the foresight to be prepared for the unexpected challenges. And one of the things that Gino always says is that people tend to overestimate what they can get done in a year and they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So if we shift this long-range thinking and time slows down, you'll find a certain peace will actually come over you and you'll start to make better decisions and become more consistent. You'll be a better leader for your people. And the irony is that whilst you slow down, you'll actually get to where you want to go faster. So what is 10-year thinking? So this is really about thinking about the future in the long term. So if you think about the date right here, right now, we are in August 2022. 10 years from now is August 2023. Have a think about how old you'll be at that date. This might be a little bit confronting for most of you, because for me, that means I'll be 62 years old. And let's face it, in the past, that was traditionally retirement age. Once you've got that really, really clear in your mind, you're going to be 62, Deborah, in 10 years' time. What is the number one most important thing you'll want to have accomplished on that date? And this becomes your sole focus in terms of what you're trying to do. So this can be from the business perspective or from a personal perspective. But, once you have a really clear understanding of where you're headed, you can then start to ask the questions around, does everything I'm doing align with my 10-year goal? And if not, you have the chance to actually adjust it and adjust your course to do that. Really confronting exercise, really, really good for getting you on track. And one of the things that Gino talks about is the 10-year cycle. So the 10-year thinking will help you burn less energy, but you have to be prepared, because in every 10 years, there will always be 2 great years, 6 good years, and 2 terrible years that can actually put you out of business. So you need to be prepared for that. You need to always have 6 months reserves in the bank so that you could actually go through those 2 terrible years that could potentially put you out of business. And like it or not, it is a 10-year cycle. It's very rare that you don't actually achieve this. So it means you have to know there will be some good years, there'll be some great years, but there will also be those 2 terrible years. So thinking in terms of 10-year cycles and thinking long-term helps you really focus on what's important. Number 2 is about taking time off. And this is really funny, because it's the ones that I do. I've got the 10-year thing down pat. I do take time off. I'm actually currently, as I said, in a camper van, or motorhome, I should say, traveling around the South Island of New Zealand, taking some time out. And when Gino says take time off, what he means is you need to turn your brain off. Just like your body needs deep restorative sleep, your brain needs rest time too. And if you think about the Stephen Covey thing of sharpening the saw before you actually start chopping down the trees, the sharpening of the saw is when you're turning your brain off, allowing your brain the time to actually restore itself so it can actually be the sharpest possible mind you can have and give you the best possible outcome. So we urge you to take actual time off. Choose the number of days you'll take off per year and actually stick to it. I have planned out my entire year, and this trip that I've got planned, the whole of August being away, has been in there since the beginning. And I knew that no matter what happened, I would be taking August off. I'd urge you, when you do take this time off, that you leave your phone calls and your emails to your assistant, whoever is covering you while you're away, because tapping into any of those sort of things will actually just bring you back to the fighting fires, to the working in the business. It's not going to allow you the time to really recharge your brain. If you can do this, you're going to return re-energized and subsequently become more creative and more productive. So, how many days off do you actually want to commit to take time off? Make sure you've got that written down, plan it out in your calendar. And I use the phrase, which I learned from one of my fellow EOS implementers, plan your life or your year before someone else does. I have a template where I actually plan out the whole year so that nobody can tell me, or my life isn't guided by everybody else's wants and needs. I still make sure I have plenty of time for my clients. I'm there. I want to make sure I serve them the best way I possibly can, but I know that I need to take time off as well. So that is number 2, take time off. Number 3 is about knowing thyself. And this comes down to, if you can't really be yourself if you don't know yourself. You need to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your modus operandi, and you need to be able to then use that in terms of what you're doing. So if you don't know how to start finding out who you are, here are a few tools you can actually use. You can use personality profiling tools. There's things like Colby, which is very much used in EOS. You've got your Myers-Briggs, your DISC. There's a whole bunch of personality profiling tools. There's some around relationships. The Gottman Institute has some amazing things around relationship profiling. The next thing you could do is you could actually go to therapy. And I know this sounds very American, and you kind of go, oh, I don't need a therapist. But you have to remember that having a therapist is actually just about having someone you can talk to. And not all therapists are the same. There's some good therapists, there's some not so great therapists, and it depends on what you're looking for from the therapist. So do go and try it. Do try a couple of them. Make sure you find the right person. I know personally, speaking to somebody externally has massive benefits in terms of being able to let things out of your system and get things out. The third thing you can do is start asking people in your life for insight. Ask them for good, honest feedback. Tell them, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses? Ask different people from different circles. Ask your husband or your spouse or your sister or your brother. Ask your mother or your father. Ask the people in your community outside of work. Ask the people at work. Get some feedback and just get a sense of, how they see you, so you can start to really understand who you are. And the reason being is, if you can start to be your authentic self, sure, you'll scare some people away. Others will judge you, others won't like you, but others will actually stick with you even more closely. And your energy will actually thrive because you don't have to worry about being anyone but yourself, no matter the context. And Gino talks about this in his book. He says that, there was a time when he got thrown a surprise 30th birthday party by his wife. And in this room, there were people from all walks of his life, people from his business, people from his colleagues, friends from his sporting clubs, people from his family. And he suddenly realized he was actually a different person around all these different groups of people. And that is a massive drain on our energy when we're trying to be something that we're not. And then imagine being confronted by all these people in the same room, and suddenly you have to go, well, what person am I? How exhausting must that be? So he has a most wonderful phrase. It's his impassioned plea, is that you let your freak flag fly and you just be the unique being that you are. And by that, he means fully, unapologetically you. When you're 100%, you have more energy because you're not faking it. And I kind of learnt this a few years ago where I realized, those of you who know me reasonably well will know that I have got two beautiful puppies and a couple of cats at home, three cats at home. I'm a real animal lover, always have done. And my animals come into my office with me. If you don't want them here, fine, we can move them out for, but generally I love having them around me. And I talked to somebody about the fact that, because it's such an important part of my life and I learned all these amazing lessons from my dogs particularly, I wanted to bring them on stage for a talk that I was doing. And I immediately got this, you can't do that. That's not professional. What will people think of you? And I almost took it on board and thought, that's true. Yeah, having dogs on stage, maybe not. And then I thought, no, you know what? Stuff it. I'm going to do it anyway. And so I had to go and give a presentation at university to a whole bunch of students. And I took my two dogs. And for the first time ever, I was completely, authentically, unapologetically myself on stage. And I would suggest it's one of the best talks I've ever given because I felt relaxed. I felt I knew who I was. I wasn't trying to be anybody else. And the feedback from that event was just amazing. And now quite regularly, my dogs actually go with me on stage if it's appropriate, depending on what I'm talking about. But certainly I love doing that. When I do my talks, when I work with clients, sadly, I'm British, and British, we tend to swear a lot. It's really hard for me not to use the F word or to, if you've seen the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral, imagine that opening scene. That's what I get like sometimes when I'm frustrated. I use swearing as a way of expressing myself. And so I have to be very, very careful because for some people that's a bit offensive. But at the same time, that is who I am. And I'm not going to hide that away. So I will always say to my clients, hey, you'll have to excuse me. I talk too fast. I get very passionate what I'm doing, and I will occasionally swear. Please, there is nothing meant by it. There's no malice intended. It's just who I am. So have a think about, who are you? Who are you truly? Have a think about going to a therapist. Use some profiling tools. Ask people for some feedback and use that clarity break that I talked about to actually think about who am I? Why do I exist? What do I want out of my life? And make sure you're really clear about who you are 100%. Number 4 is perhaps what I'm not so good at, and it's about being still. So Gina emphasizes the power of taking time to be still and silent every day. So imagine a glass of water with sand in it. If you're always on the go, then it is murky. When that glass is moving the whole time, it's always murky. It needs time to settle for a few minutes, and it becomes clear, lucid, and calm. So we as humans are exactly the same. We need time to be still so that we can become clear, lucid, and calm. And it's tough, right? And Gino says, don't be discouraged if you're not great at first. This is a discipline that takes time to develop. If you can do it though, and I am learning how to do this myself, the result is you'll be more creative, you'll have clearer ideas, and your energy will shoot through the roof. So the best way that you can actually do this is at the start of your day, just take 10 minutes. Even if it means coming into the office first and then taking 10 minutes, sit quietly in a chair. Be completely and utterly still. Pause and breathe. And just see what happens. If you do this for 30 days, it becomes a habit. And I think you'll find that if you just keep calm and just breathe, that clarity, that lucidity comes when the water is not being shaken consistently. Number 5 is about knowing your 100%. Every year, at the end of every year, Gino actually looks at his calendar and he adds up how many days he worked and how many he actually had off. And he weighs that up against how his energy levels felt during the year. And if he felt spread really thin, he reduces the number of days he works the next year. And if he felt like he had good energy the whole time around, he might push that a wee bit, or he might stick with the same. But the key thing is you've got to pay attention to your energy levels throughout your working days, your weeks, and your months. And that will help you determine your capacity and define your 100%. I've said in earlier podcasts, I know for me now, 55, 60 hours is about where I'm at my sweet spot. Anything more than that, and there's the law of diminishing return, I'm actually going downhill. I'm actually not getting any more effort. And in fact, my productivity slips. I also know now, it's taken me a few years, but I now know that I need to have a decent break throughout the year and lots of mini breaks as well. And so I actually plan out my year in advance with all my holidays, all my rest time, all of my long weekends, my family time, and have it in there before I even start looking at making appointments with clients. So think about, what is your number? What's your 100%? How many hours per week do you want to work? How many weeks per year do you want to work? And it's different for everybody, but be really clear about that. And once you have that, then also think about, what's your ideal wake up time? For me, I know that it's generally around about 5:36. Strangely, 5 o'clock and I'm exhausted. Anything before 5 and I'm just about at walking dead. So somewhere between 5:36 is my ideal wake up time. What time do you need to go to bed to do that? So for me, if I want to be up at 5:30 in the morning, I've really got to be in bed by 9:30. I need 8 hours sleep. What time do I need to go home from work? Steve will tell you, I often get a phone call and it's like, are you coming home this evening, darling? It's like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, I forgot. So now I actually have it in my calendar. There's a time when I need to go home. And that is to enable me to have the time that I need to spend with my family. And then once you have that number, you know what your ideal wake up time, your ideal time to go to bed, your ideal time to go home, just follow it regularly. Because if you can be in high energy and you've got 100% of your energy, you are absolutely the best version of yourself. Number 6 is say no often. And this is something that we talked about in the last podcast, is that actually really, really successful people know to say no to almost everything. And there's a really great book by Greg McKeown. I think it's not McKeown, I don't know how to say his name, but he wrote a book called Essentialism. And he talks about really getting back to the absolute basics. It's either a hell yeah or it's a no. There is nothing in between. So if you know your long-term goal, if you know why you're on this planet, if you know how many hours you can work in a week, you can be really comfortable. And you either go, hell yeah, I want to do that. It's going to make my boat go faster, make my heart sing, make me feel amazing, or it's a no, nothing in between. And so when someone asks something of you that's outside of your capacity, you've got two options, right? You can say no and feel discomfort for a few minutes, or you can say yes and regret it for days, weeks, months, or potentially years. So Gino says, I love saying no to people. It's so easy for me to say no because it's so obvious what I'm saying no to. And what he means by that is it's very, very clear on his long-term goal and how things work in with that, which means if it does not fit in with that long-term goal, that's a definite no. So it is difficult to say no, though, because, especially if you're half British, you kind of go, oh, I don't want to upset anybody, I don't want to offend anybody. So how do I say no? And just saying no feels really blunt. So there's a really good way of doing it. You don't have to explain your no. If somebody says to you, hey, Deb, would you come and do this talk for us next week? You can say, thank you for thinking of me, but I'm afraid it's a no, thank you. You don't have to explain why. You just need to say, no, it's not for me. Gino did a talk that I remember watching where he got somebody to ask him for something, and he was just literally, yep, yes, thank you, but no. And that is how you do it. So just make sure. So write down one thing you should have said yes, should have said no to, and not yes to, and how could you have said no to it? What is the one thing you commit to saying no to it to one person this week? Number 7 is also been talked about in one of my previous podcasts. Don't do $25 an hour work. If you want to earn 6 figures plus as an entrepreneur running a business, then you have to make sure that you are paying someone to do that $25 an hour work for you. So you've got the energy to do the things you're good at, the things that earn you your 6 figures. So think about the things you hate and how it makes you feel when you're doing them, and think about the things that you love and how it makes you feel when you're doing that. So be very, very clear. Use the Delegate and Elevate tool, and just think about, what are the admin tasks that you're doing in your professional life and your personal life? Sit down and write a list of all the administrative tasks that you're actually doing. Is it cleaning the house? Is it that work that you're answering, emails that make no sense for you to be doing? Write every single thing down. And now you've got a job description for your new assistant. Go ahead and hire one. And I would thoroughly recommend that everybody should have an assistant. When I first heard this from Gino, I thought, Well, that's so old fashioned. We don't need assistance in today's age. I can do everything myself. I'm super, super onto everything. I know technology. But why would you be doing it? Why would you waste your precious time doing things that somebody else could do? And so since having an assistant, since having a VA over in the Philippines, it's just made such a massive difference to my life. Having a cleaner at home takes away that time I used to spend cleaning. When we get into our next house, I will be having a gardener. It's not that I'm a snob. It's not that I don't like gardening. I want to do gardening when I want to do it and when it makes me feel good. I don't want to have to do it. And if I'm, having to continually garden the garden, then that is taking away time from things that I love doing. So don't do $25 an hour work. Make a list of all the things that you want to delegate and get yourself an assistant. Number 8 is prepare every night. So Gino says that you should not go to sleep until you have clarity on what you're doing the next day. And the reason for this is, if you go to sleep and you're not really, really clear about what you need to do the next day, this is usually the time when you wake up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, kind of go, oh my gosh, I've got to think about this. And suddenly you find yourself getting out of bed, writing something down, possibly grabbing your phone, which is great, not for your sleep. So, he says that just sit down, put yourself in front of he talks about a legal pad. I use my Remarkable. I love my Remarkable. And I literally sit there and I go through, and even though I have an electronic calendar, I literally write up my calendar for the next day. I go through and I through all the appointments I have to do. I go through all the tasks I know I need to do. I put my focus in terms of what I need to focus on tomorrow. And this will actually help you sleep better, wake up with more ideas, and hit the ground running. And I learned from one of my previous podcast guests, when we first wake up in the morning is the only time in our lives when we are actually in theta state, which is where our brain has the capacity to take things on board. So if you can go to bed at night having got everything out of your head and you wake up in the morning, best thing you can possibly do is make 0 decisions. Because as soon as you make a decision, that you got out of that theta state, pick up something you want to learn, be it a book, a course, whatever it is that you're doing, and actually feed that into your brain at that point. As soon as you have to make a decision, that theta state is gone, and that is the best time when stuff will actually go into your brain. So on that basis, have your coffee ready to go, not what you're going to wear the next morning. Have everything ready, prepare the night before, and then, be ready to do it. So before you go to sleep, lay out your next day, carry it out for the entire week, see how you feel. It's made a massive difference to my sleeping patterns. You can use any device or pad that you like, just get it all out of your head. And then use the Pomodoro principle to break down work into chunks. Think about the calls that need to be made, think about the meetings you need to attend, think about the projects to finish. And listen to my podcast, I can't think of the guest's name right now, but I will put it in the links. Listen to that, how he actually works that. And if you like to be spontaneous, then you've actually lost control of your life and you're letting other people manage your energy. So sometimes by being actually more restrictive or more structured around the way you plan your day, you have the ability to be more spontaneous, but you don't want to lose control of your life. You need to plan your own life and do what you need to do. Number 9 is about putting everything in one place. So successful people receive copious requests, they make lots of commitments, they have numerous ideas, and they solve many problems throughout any given day. So write down everything you think about, every plan you make, everything you do in one place. And this will actually streamline your energy and prevent you from forgetting important ideas and meetings. You will let yourself and others down less frequently. So it just gives you this much simpler way of actually managing things. And again, I don't get paid by them, but I love my Remarkable because I can actually store everything in there. I can put it into folders. I can categorize it. I can search on things based on titles and words and things in the actual document. So this has really saved me a huge amount of energy and time because I'm not looking for what notepad was that in, what diary is that in, where did I put that? I can just go to that one place and make sure that it's there. So decide that one place that you're going to put every single work, commitment, idea, and thought into. Capture everything that comes up in the day in that place and just try it for a week. If you think about it, having stuff all over the place makes the brain have to work overtime. And working overtime means wasted energy. And this is all about actually conserving and maximizing our energy. So put everything in one place. And the very, very final discipline, number 10, is about being humble. And so the way that Gino describes this in the book is he talks about arrogance, a level of importance you place yourself on in comparison to others. So where are you on the humble to arrogant scale? And Gino actually recommends you ask people, on a scale of, being completely humble to being completely arrogant, where do you actually sit? Because when you are humble, you get more energy back from the people than you put out. I can only say I have been absolutely blown away by the number of people who've offered to come on my podcast, by the people who've offered to help my clients, by the people who, when I need something, they're just there for me. I spend my life trying to help others, but it's just so rewarding to see that come back as well. So this is how I would do it. So Gino recommends doing it. List the 5 most important people in your life. Is it your spouse? Is it your work colleague? Is it one of your suppliers? The 5 most important people, your best friends, your family. And then reach out to them and ask them where they would place you on the arrogant to humble spectrum. The more humble you are, the more it will help you attract people who mirror your attitude. I am so fortunate to be part of communities like the EOS community, like the connector communities, people who are all very, very similar in terms of humbleness, in terms of helping first. And I have to say, I love that. I love that about my life. I'm surrounded by people. I'm doing what I love with people I love. And there's nothing more important in life. So that is the 10 disciplines of managing and maximizing your energy. There is an EOS Life blog all about it, which means you can actually go there and you can read some of the things. I think there's an EOS Life podcast, which goes more into the EOS Life side of things. And there's also a webpage for the latest updates as well. So I will make sure that all of those links are in the comments section of the podcast or the description section. And there's some really great tools you can download, but I would highly recommend getting hold of the EOS Life book, which also contains these 10 disciplines of managing and maximizing your energy. And Gino goes into some specific examples of people that he's worked with and some exercises you can actually do, which is accompanied by the EOS Life journal, which actually helps you record all this as well. That's it from me for this particular podcast. I've got a couple more episodes of myself while I'm still out and about until I get back in early September, and then we'll be back straight into interviewing other guests. I hope this has been helpful. If there's anything I can do to help you, please do reach out. My contact details are there in the description. Have an awesome week and make sure that you maximize your energy and get the most out of your life. Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on Better Business, Better Life with me, your host, Debra Chantry-Taylor. If you enjoyed what you heard, then please subscribe to this podcast and let us help you to get what you want out of business and life. Each week we release a new short episode which will give a success story and 3 takeouts to put into action immediately. These will help you take your business from good to great. The podcast is also supported by free resources, templates and useful tools which you can find at debrachantrytaylor.com. I am a trained entrepreneurial leadership and business coach, a professional EOS implementer, and an established business owner myself. I work with established businesses to help them get what they want. Feel free to contact me if you'd like to have a chat about how I might be able to help you, or if you'd like to join me as a guest on this podcast. Thanks again to NZ Audio Editors for producing this podcast. See you on the next episode.